Oblique?
Oblique.
Jackie April Jr. wasn't just a spoiled rich kid. He was a walking disaster the mob tried to ignore. Here's what nobody tells you about his tragic downfall. This is a serious question. Was Jackie Jr. dealing with a legitimate learning disorder or cognitive issue? Because for someone enrolled in college, his behavior suggested something far south of average intelligence.
Oblique?
Oblique. Indirect, not straightforward. Come on, you're in college.
Not an English major.
In Scrabble, his best plays were poo and ass. He thought oblique was Spanish. He genuinely seemed to believe that projecting confidence made up for the fact he didn't understand how anything actually worked. He once told the acting boss of the North Jersey mob that he wanted to personally kill one of the family's capos. That's not just overstepping, it's delusional.
The club before you took over, and the other night he got thrown out on his ass. And I wanted to ask you, as a favor to me, let him keep a little action going.
He assumed he had the authority to make decisions about drug sales at a club run by Christopher, a made guy, and ignored a direct order when told otherwise. After promising to straighten out while dating the boss's daughter, he immediately turned around and started running. His own little side hustle out of a strip club, armed no less. His romantic decisions weren't much better.
I know he's cheating on me. I could hear it in his voice. Car inspection? It's bullshit.
He cheated on Meadow with a prostitute and tried to pass it off with the excuse, "I had to get my car inspected." At 11 p.m., that's not just dishonest, it's lazy and insultingly stupid.
He took a shot at me. He tried to kill Fiorio. We're made. Well, if he pushing you whack, you risk exposure. Major murder, it's what the feds asked for Christmas.
Then there was the grand plan: rob and potentially kill members of Ralph's crew to win their respect, as if they would reward that with anything other than bullets. He played at being a gangster the same way a kid might play dress-up, only with real consequences. He also lost a chess game to a child in 5 moves. While hiding in a safe house, aware he was being hunted by the mob, he left alone to go to a convenience store out of boredom. And then, of course, there's whatever happened at the Penguin exhibit. Something never fully explained, but clearly infamous enough to become a punchline. So, was he mentally handicapped? No. He wasn't developmentally delayed. He was a spoiled, average intelligence kid who had been treated like royalty his entire life. His father once praised him for knowing the capital of Canada, which he couldn't even confidently say. But in that world, being even mildly literate made you look like a genius. Jackie Sr. likely meant well. He wanted better for his son, tried to keep him out of the life, and probably believed the praise would give him confidence. But what it actually did was inflate a fragile ego that had never been tested by real effort or real consequence. His mother, Rosalie, didn't help. She wasn't hard on him. She loved him, but didn't challenge him. That, combined with the male role models in his life, being a revolving door of criminals, meant he was never shown a realistic or meaningful path to success.
I got distracted this year by things. Ralph said I was probably wasting my time if I didn't have the aptitude.
Ralph.
He wasn't taught patience. He wasn't taught discipline. And he wasn't self-aware enough to compensate. Jackie Jr. had no interest in learning. He resented people like Christopher, who worked their way up the hard way and treated them with barely concealed jealousy and entitlement. When Christopher became a made guy, Jackie could hardly bring himself to congratulate him. When Christopher said no to drugs in a club, Jackie immediately undermined him. He wanted the rewards of the life without the work or the respect. In another world, maybe he could have been something. He had initiative. He had guts. In the wrong context, like the mob, those traits only got him killed faster. He wasn't mentally handicapped. He was just a deeply foolish young man, raised to believe he was something special without ever doing a thing to earn it. He never had the makings of a varsity athlete or a mobster. Most TV interventions are awkward. This one is a total disaster, and that's exactly why it's pure genius. The intervention scene involving Christopher Moltisanti is one of the most brilliantly executed comedic moments in The Sopranos. It perfectly balances dark humor, character dysfunction, and sheer absurdity, resulting in a scene that manages to be both hilarious and tragic. From the outset, the setup for a serious, heartfelt confrontation collapses almost immediately. Instead of a supportive circle, Christopher is met with passive-aggressive jabs, outright insults, and bizarre non-sequiturs.
Yeah, you're the guy who broke into Stu Leonard's that time. You stole all those pork loins.
The memorable line, "You're the guy who stole all those pork loins, right?" sets the tone. Any semblance of structure vanishes.
Last week when I came home to learn that you had killed our dog, that was the final straw.
Tony Soprano, expected to take a leadership role, instead fixates on the death of Cosette, Adriana's dog, Little Cosette, as he repeatedly emphasizes. His grief over the pet far outweighs any concern for Christopher's spiraling addiction. It's both hilarious and telling of his character. Meanwhile,
You killed little Cosette. I had to suffocate you, you little prick.
others try to stay on script, with Silvio delivering his written remarks in an awkward, robotic tone, "You are an embarrassment," before physically shoving the mediator when tensions rise. Paulie, predictably, refuses to write anything down and instead offers crude commentary.
You can no longer function as a man.
His reaction to Adriana's claim that Chris can no longer function as a man is a standout moment. The smirk, the offhand comment, if you can even call it that, and his inability to let the joke go adds another layer of dysfunction to the already collapsing scene. Despite the setting being an intervention, the accusations quickly shift to various unrelated offenses. Allegations fly, from killing the dog to past crimes like breaking into Stu Leonard's to steal pork loins. The interventionist, attempting to guide the process, quickly becomes collateral damage, remembered more for his petty criminal record than for his role in recovery. His subdued, deadpan performance only amplifies the absurdity surrounding him. When the group inevitably decides the talking isn't working, they opt for physical action, charging Christopher. The chaos that follows is pure farce. Shouting, flailing limbs, and somehow Benny getting beaten up despite being the most eager participant. Furio stands silently through it all, offering no input, as if witnessing a boardroom meltdown. The comedic brilliance lies in how seriously everyone takes themselves, while the situation spirals into slapstick mayhem. Each character's inability to communicate honestly or with emotional maturity turns the intervention into a parody of itself. Even serious statements are undermined by ridiculous delivery or immediate contradiction. Lines like, "What was it?" barking, and "He fell off the kitchen counter spraying for ants," delivered with stone-faced sincerity, push the scene into surreal comedy.
When I came in to open up one morning, there you were with your head half in the toilet. Your hair was in the toilet water. Disgusting.
The specificity of toilet water, instead of simply water, is a subtle yet deliberate punchline. Despite all this, Christopher's drug problem, the supposed focus of the intervention, barely gets addressed meaningfully. What should have been a pivotal emotional confrontation becomes a theater of grievances and misdirected rage. This scene encapsulates what The Sopranos does best, layering complex emotional dysfunction under sharp, often cruel humor. It remains one of the most iconic sequences in the series, flawlessly written, acted, and directed. Everyone praises The Sopranos as a masterpiece, but here's the brutal truth about how its biggest character arcs got butchered in the final seasons. Rewatching The Sopranos, one thing still stands out: the abrupt, almost careless way the writers wrapped up Dr. Melfi's storyline.
One of them is the criminal personality, conducted by Yoshelson at St. Elizabeth's.
After 6 seasons of sessions with Tony, she drops him in the penultimate episode, after a dinner party conversation and a quick look at a psychological study. That's the moment of clarity? That's the end of arguably the show's most psychologically complex relationship. It feels like the writers just waved her off. Toodaloo, as she says, which, sure, is technically a form of goodbye, but coming from her, in that moment, it reads as tonal whiplash. The final therapy scene is especially jarring. Melfi, who had always maintained a professional distance, suddenly becomes passive-aggressive and emotionally reactive.
Anyway, she told me something interesting. A lot of studies about talk therapy as it relates to sociopaths.
She uses her own therapist as a sounding board to justify her decision, but the self-righteous delivery rings hollow. She lashes out at Tony, while simultaneously avoiding responsibility for her own complicity in enabling him over the years. Some argue the departure was realistic, a slow burn that finally snapped after years of internal conflict. And there's merit to that. Her ex-husband warned her. Her therapist warned her.
I'm going to bring in some things for you to read about behavior modification therapy.
She had doubts as early as season 3 when she admitted Tony might benefit more from behavioral therapy. But her reasons for continuing treatment were personal, especially after her assault. She kept Tony around, at least in part, for the sense of protection and power he represented. Even if the choice to end therapy makes sense, the pacing doesn't. The final decision plays like a plot requirement rather than a character-driven moment. It lacked emotional build-up. It lacked weight. This isn't an isolated issue. Season 6 is full of underdeveloped or abruptly concluded storylines. Tony's gambling spirals out of control, then is dropped. Hesh's subplot vanishes after one shocking event. The Vegas peyote trip feels disconnected. AJ switches career goals weekly. Furio disappears with no closure. The Tony Pauly road trip comes out of nowhere and leads nowhere. So many arcs are introduced without resolution or fade out with barely a mention.
If I was to hear, let's say, a murder was to take place, not that I'm saying it would, but if.
Earlier seasons used Melfi brilliantly. She served as a mirror, a conscience, a window into Tony's mind. By the end, she was reduced to a narrative tool, a way to insert exposition, a structure the show no longer needed, but didn't know how to close properly. There's also the deeper irony. Her realization isn't new. She had known for years that Tony was using therapy not for growth, but to feel justified. The study she hears about at dinner is just a trigger, one she likely could have encountered years earlier, yet only now does it lead her to act. The final session could have been a powerful confrontation, a culmination of a complex, morally grey relationship. Instead, it comes off as one-sided and shallow. Melfi deflects, Tony leaves, that's it. Thematically, perhaps that was the point. People don't always get closure. Relationships sometimes end in cold silence, but narratively, it deserved better. Melfi's exit could have deepened the show's core questions about morality, therapy, power, and denial. Instead, it felt like a footnote. There was always ambiguity in her role. Sometimes a caretaker, sometimes a voyeur, sometimes even a stand-in for the audience. But in the end, she's not given the space to confront what she's become or what she's enabled. That ambiguity is sacrificed for a convenient exit. It wasn't unearned, but it was rushed, and it left one of the show's richest characters without the depth or dignity her story had earned. Most people get Ralphie's death all wrong, treating it like a simple mob hit. But if you overlook the true horror of that moment, you're missing the whole story. Ralphie's death scene is one of the most underappreciated horror moments on screen. Imagine this, the hulking mob boss standing in your doorway, invading your personal space like he owns it. Your son's just been shot by some dark lord with a bow, an arrow straight from Sauron himself. Instead of calling for help, you decide to flee to the kitchen, trying to avoid the boss's mounted lackey. Spoiler, it doesn't end well. The boss follows. interrogating you as tension builds. He makes himself comfortable in your kitchen, a place now invaded by someone who openly hates you.
What? So what? It was a fucking animal! 100 grand apiece! My kid's in a fucking hospital!
You try to address the obvious, yelling, "It's a fucking animal!" desperately defending yourself while your son's fate lingers in the back of your mind. Tony menacingly steps closer, and you snap back with a sarcastic comment about his gluttony, exactly the bait he was waiting for. Then comes the hit. Desperately, you grab whatever's around to fend off those crushing fingers until finally the last breath is squeezed from your lungs. Directed by Christopher Moltisanti, it's like Saw meets The Godfather. Ben Kingsley would have been perfect to play the boss.
It was burnt so bad that they had to put her out of her misery.
I don't even want to think about it.
That terrified horse tied up outside as the flames close in. The ultimate horror. It was just a horse, yet the image of it, helpless, is chilling. Ralphie goes to the door unarmed, sees the man who hates him, and thinks, "Oh good, it's just that murderer." There was likely a gun nearby. He even gave Jackie one out of Rose's kitchen drawer. Not having a gun in the kitchen would have been cinematic suicide. The episode is gritty and horrifying, one of the best, even if it's tough to watch. Ralphie believed he was untouchable as captain, forgetting Tony is a cold-blooded sociopath. The fight wasn't comical, despite the odd mix of eggs and insults. If Ralphie had wielded his flail, the outcome might have been different. Tony's timing was despicable, his son in the hospital fighting for his life, and he chooses that moment to kill Ralphie. That's cold. While horses can be personal friends to some, legally and morally, killing a horse isn't the same as killing a person. Society clearly recognizes the difference. Ralphie didn't break Omerta. He disrespected Debunking. And that's a very different story. Lastly, that wasn't even Ralphie's kid she was carrying. A fight like that is all about size, 90% of it. The whole scene? It's brutally realistic and downright depressing. The deadliest thing in The Sopranos wasn't a gun. It was a box of Whitman's chocolates, and nobody talks about it. Everyone who took a piece of the chocolate Paulie brought for Vito's brother ended up dead. One by one.
There's no beef between your brother and Mustang Sally.
After Mustang Sally leaves Vito's brother brutally injured,
I brought him some Whitman's.
Paulie arrives at the hospital with a box of Whitman's sampler chocolates, supposedly a kind gesture.
Say the word, my fucking pleasure.
Why don't you go grab us some coffee?
But before Vito can open the box, Paulie and Tony quietly leave the room. Left behind are Vito, Ralphie, Jean, and Gigi. They each take a piece, and eventually, they each die. It plays out like some twisted omen. The chocolate, intended for a man in a coma, becomes a symbol, almost a curse. A sacred gift wrapped in cellophane and filled with doom. Paulie's behavior is suspicious. He touches his shoelaces, then the box. The packaging looks tampered with, rewrapped. The implication is subtle, but the unease is there. Was it sabotage? The idea starts to form. Maybe this wasn't just a snack. Maybe this was something darker. An offering. A hex. A Whitman sampler of death. Big box, little chocolates. A hit in any wise guy's league. The chocolates themselves almost feel like made men. No one gave permission, yet they got whacked. Even Vito's doctor's note didn't save him from the fallout. There they sat, chewing on fate. Tony doesn't eat one, but he dies too. Or at least, that's the interpretation. The symbolism holds. In this world, proximity is enough. If there's chocolate around, someone's going to take a piece. Whether that means doom or not is another matter entirely.
Since he's dead, my gambling luck's done a 180.
Paulie notably survives. It's been theorized that he may have played a role in Tony's fate, possibly even handing him over to New York. Nothing confirmed, just shadows, gestures, and half-closed blinds. And yet, the image lingers. A man brings a box of chocolates to a hospital room, says it's for a guy in a coma. 4 men eat, 4 men die. Paulie walks away untouched. A simple gift. Or something else entirely. He got him a Whitman's.
Everyone gets Jackie Jr. wrong. Here's the shocking truth. Nobody talks about when they roast him for that strip club scene. It's baffling how many people assume he got caught getting a lap dance there, of all places. Like he waltzed into Tony Soprano's home base, dropped cash on a dancer, and expected 0 consequences. But no, that's not what happened. There's an entire scene that explicitly sets this up. Tony and the guys are at Vesuvio's.
Her husband dumps her and she never looks so good? You gotta ask yourself why.
Charmaine, now with an improved figure and a sharper tongue, cracks a joke about the FBI at the next table. Not exactly the vibe Tony was going for. Tension builds.
He's at 146 Route 9A, Kinderhook.
Tony, let's get the fucking out of here. Silvio, there's this new place on Route whatever I've been meaning to check out. The Competition. That's the cue. They're not going back to the Bing. They're headed to a new strip club Sil wants to scope out. And what do they find? Jackie Jr., center stage, grinding it out on the couch like he's in a music video. Not in a private room, not being subtle, just fully embracing his poor decision-making in full view.
What?
I was at a bachelor party. I got dragged here. I didn't even want to come.
That's exactly what the fuck we talked about the other day. Now get your money and get the fuck out of here.
Yes, it's his fraternity brother's bachelor party. No, he didn't want to be there. Yes, it's incredibly dumb. But let's be clear. Even Jackie Jr. wouldn't be stupid enough to pull that stunt at the Bing, where Tony holds court daily. Also worth noting, the decor, the layout, even the bathrooms make it obvious it's not the Bing. Different place entirely. This wasn't some act of defiance. It was just a perfect storm of bad luck, bad timing, and even worse judgment. Is Jackie Jr. dumb? Absolutely. This is the guy who almost drowned at the Penguin exhibit and thinks D-girl is a valid insult. But that night wasn't about picking a fight. It was about underestimating how small the world really is.
It's a bachelor party. My friend was.
Still, if you're gonna play gangster, maybe don't do it within driving distance of actual gangsters. Especially not in public, surrounded by your girlfriend's extended mob family. He thought he was in the clear. He wasn't. So, which voiceover did you like more? My voiceover!
Or my voiceover. Your choice will decide how I do the next video, so please leave a comment with either girl or boy, and let me know. This is an important decision, and I truly value your input. Thanks for watching Sopranos Breakdown. If you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button. We're aiming for 1,000 likes. Your support means a lot. See you next time.